Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another match preview on the Babbling Irons channel. And the last one of the season, the most important one of the season, it is, of course, Fiorentina in the cup final. So, Mike, this is it. I'm sure the nerves are settled in for you as well already. We're recording this on the Monday, so a couple of days before the match. How are you feeling? Are you confident? Are you nervous? What's your initial gut kind of saying to you?
I'm not confident. I'm nervous, and my gut isn't necessarily going the way that many people would want it to go. That is just my initial reactions to it. I don't think some of our preparation leading up to it hasn't exactly been great. Because obviously certain people wanted to be quite loud-mouthed in the camp and probably should have been more astute and smarter rather than trying to engineer an exit. But that is the case of football nowadays, right? But yeah, I don't feel necessarily that confident because this is the first time we've had any real competition in this competition, if we're being honest. So yeah, confidence isn't necessarily that high because Fiorentina are a very good team and they very much know how to score, and that is something that does concern me.
Yeah, I think I spoke on E20's channel last week, and I was basically saying we don't really know what this West Ham team is capable of in terms of a final. It's like a one-off match. We've seen us definitely develop over two legs. We came short last year, obviously in the Europa League semis, but this year we got through it, and I thought we did very well to do that. In terms of this match, right, Fiorentina, they've just experienced a cup final loss to Inter Milan in the Coppa Italia, I think it was. So they'll be feeling that. So now it's basically whoever wins this match is going to be playing European football again next season. They've just finished their campaign on Friday, so that we've had an extra time to kind of rest up, and obviously we've been away in the sunshine training. Do you think that was a good move, going away for that kind of period of time, and maybe a bit more of a team bond? Finishing the Premier League season just away from everything in England and just getting our heads right for this massive game that's coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's the absolute right preparation. I think, bearing in mind, you've got 10 days. You want to keep that unit together rather than them all going off and kind of doing their own things. So keeping that unit together, taken away to somewhere warm when, normally the season will be over, they'll be going on their holidays anyway, right?
Yeah.
So by essentially asking them to, look, let's stay together as a unit, let's keep ourselves ticking over, let's keep that fitness going, let's keep, let's kind of do things that are bond and kind of bring us all together. I think that was the right idea because you need to remove the pressure from what is coming. We know the players are going to be feeling it. We're obviously as fans, we're all ridiculously feeling it. So I think anything that is a distraction and detracts away from what is to come, obviously they're very aware of it, but anything that can be done in which to ease that pressure and to get them away, I guess, from the English pressures and home, because let's face it, players will bump into fans and fans will be kind of that nervous energy could rub off on them. So I think it's a smart idea, to be honest, to bring them away and do this kind of bonding exercise with light training.
Yeah, I think so as well. And you kind of see from the clips coming out that there is that cohesion there. Obviously, the players chanting Ben Rama as they go through the water park, like yeah, and then playing golf. Like it seems like there is that togetherness that you want and want to see before a final. I hope that the pressure doesn't start to get to the players a bit too much and they treat it like such a massive occasion, because that's probably when you overthink things and start to over contemplate like decisions in a match. Obviously saw Bowen's interview yesterday where he even mentioned himself, like, this is the biggest game, the biggest moment of his career. Like even the players are very aware of the magnitude of what's about to happen. Does that scare you a little bit that, this is being treated at such a massive occasion? Obviously, all the talk about Declan Rice, lifting that trophy for Mark Noble, all of that kind of talk. Does it add pressure onto us that we really don't need to have at this moment in time?
No, I think it's good. I think ultimately, I've been saying about they need to get away from the pressures, but you also have to be able to live with it and accept those pressures. If you're not willing to or are able to accept those pressures, you're not going to thrive in it. If you're able to acknowledge that this is a big game, to accept how big it is, and to essentially digest that and utilize it as a fuel in which to perform, as opposed to to kind of suffocate underneath, then I think it's a good thing. We do have the likes of Zuma, who I'm pretty sure was at Chelsea when they won the Champions League and played in that final. Obviously, Declan Rice has played in a final for England as well. So there is some level of experience. Obviously, Souček and Soufal, they won trophies whilst at Slavia. So they've had those big games. It's also in their home stadium. So I do think there are characters within the club who can be a calming influence, who will be essentially telling those players to acknowledge those fears, acknowledge that pressure, because the more you try and push it away and kind of pretend it's not there, the worse it's going to be, because all of a sudden it's going to be like a wave crashing over you when you're in that game, and all of a sudden that pressure, there's no escape, there's no denying it. It is 100% on you. So yeah, I've got no problems with them acknowledging it, saying how big a game it is. It's more in the body language is where you then see as to, do they look like they're comfortable with it? And I don't think, I don't necessarily see a problem with them acknowledging there is pressure. And sometimes it's not a problem them not being comfortable talking about the pressure, but it all comes down to this week has really been to help them relax. I think it's been, again, letting them understand, helping them understand that it is a big game. But again, it's trying to relieve that pressure from them and to remove that layer of, I guess, tension leading up to the game.
Sure. I completely agree. I think from that point of view, it's going to be really important we control those emotions when it comes to actually getting on the pitch and, using it in the correct way, because it can be easy to get, let the adrenaline get to you, and then you kind of just burn out after 45, 60 minutes. And we already know we've got players in our ranks that burn out pretty quickly. So from a kind of more technical point of view, from a tactical perspective, how would you like to see David Moyes set up for this game? Because I have a kind of happy medium with how I'd like to approach it. I would like there to be an element of pragmatism. I will say that. I don't want us to go out there and try and control the match, because I don't think we'll be able to against Fiorentina, because they do like to have a lot of possession and they like to commit bodies forward. And B, I actually think their biggest weakness will play into Moyes' strength, which is on that counter and, getting those quick turnovers and making sure that we make them pay in those critical moments that Moyes likes to allude to a lot as well. So how would you like to see it? Would you like to see West Ham try and control the match, dictate the tempo and pace, or would you like to see us be a little bit more cautious, grow into the game and pick our moments when we can, because this is a one-off game?
So I just don't think we're capable of controlling the game under Moyes. As simple as that. So saying that I want to see us control it, what's the point? We don't look to control games. It's as simple as that. So I'm willing to accept and happy with a level of pragmatism, but provided that we're not doing so with a really deep line, a really low kind of block, and our only tactic, our only method of attacking Fiorentina is via a counter-attack and in transition. We have to be more than that. When we do get the ball and, they're not looking to press, then we have to be calm. We have to look to play that ball and not necessarily think we have to score with every attack, So there has to be a level of pragmatism, because I just think that, unfortunately, we don't have a style that suits anything beyond that. And Fiorentina are a very dangerous team. So I think us trying to play with the ball too much will play into their hands, because we will make mistakes if we try to boss them. And also they do have some good quality and good pace in those flank positions as well. So again, if we are going to be kind of trying to control, that means we have to push players forward, and that then again plays into their hands as well. So it's kind of, we have to play a bit like, I guess, how we did against United. We did play good in patches. We weren't massively amazing, but, we got a win and all right.
I think what I want to see is exactly that. I think there needs to be we need to be a little bit pragmatic. We need to be, that resolute defensive performance, but we also need to make sure we're not just giving back possession to Fiorentina every time that we kind of break up play. We need to be either A, comfortable in possession, like you mentioned, and, actually keep the ball when we do get it. And B, we also need to take care of those transitions really well, because there were a lot of times, it's been throughout this season. I think Fulham away is a good example of that. We were defensively around our box really, really good, but on the ball, we were absolutely atrocious. We can't afford to do that against Fiorentina because, like you mentioned, they have the players, and I think they will create chances regardless of how we play. So for me, we have to take those opportunities when they come, and that is going to decide this final, because I have no doubt that we will get 2 or 3 really, really good chances in the match, at a minimum, if we play the way that we want to play under Moyes. It's just whether we take them and whether we actually capitalise, because, like you mentioned, Fiorentina have some excellent players, especially going forward. So in terms of that, kind of alluding to the players' point of view, who would you identify, for those maybe not more familiar with Fiorentina's team, as their dangers? Because they've got a few really good players in their attacking ranks.
Yeah, I think one of the obvious one is Nicolas Dominguez. He's been scoring quite a bit for fun. He does pretty much what Bowen does, but I would say he's a lot more involved in overall play. Good pace, left footer on the right-hand side. I do have concerns with him against Cresswell because, as we know, Cresswell can and does switch off at the back post. He very much has done very well attacking that far post and being in there, as well as obviously drifting in the area. So there's going to need to be a lot of communication in which to handle him. Obviously, there's Luka Jovic, who doesn't always start, but he's a centre forward that once we were after. Everyone remember him from his Frankfurt season. He is a good striker, although he isn't necessarily scoring as quickly as many as he used to. They've got from a left back, Biragi, the captain, as well. He is a fantastic set piece taker, great crossing ability as well. And there's just all over their pitch. Castrovilli is a very good technical centre midfielder, can score goals as well.
Amrabat as well in midfield as well.
Yeah, he's a great worker. He's a fantastic screen for the defence. Very solid in possession as well. So there are a number of players in that team that we have to look out for because they are a good team. As I say, Biragi is very good going forward. You've got Dodo on the other side. Again, is another good attacking fullback.
Yeah.
When you look at their midfield, as you said, you've got Sofiane Amrabat, who is pretty good. I think Benvenuto is a bit of a Benvenuto. Can't remember his name precisely. It's another really solid player, tends to kind of score from goals and dictate players. Well, there's Castrovilli, who tends to play as well. And up front, again, Nicolas Dominguez is probably a very big threat. You've got Koundé, who plays on the other side. So Kume, who plays on the other side as well. So there are a number of players that you look at and go, there are threats throughout their team.
Yeah.
Again, there are threats within our team. We do have threats across our team. It's just as about as to who can find those pockets, who can, in those moments of or those chances, who can take those chances as and when they arise, because it could potentially be a bit of a midfield battle. I think that's ultimately where the game will be won and lost. It'll either be in midfield or in transition. It's going to be one of those two elements is where the game is won and lost.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think we are going to need to see clinical moments when we get them. I think we've said it with Bowen, especially this season. He hasn't been that clinical self. He hasn't taken those chances. He's definitely underperformed in terms of like what he should have expected goals wise. But then obviously we'll get into what we want to see in the lineup in a minute. But if you had someone like Ben Rama, he's very much been more clinical than probably most of our attackers this season. And he has taken those chances when they've arrived at him. So we're going to have to, it's such a tough game. It's such a tough game to call because even looking at the bookmakers, they have it pretty much 50-50. Some of them have slight West Ham as favourites. Some of them have Fiorentina as slight favourites. So it really could go either way. And like you mentioned, I think that midfield battle is going to be so key. From a lineup perspective from West Ham, I'd assume we'll go with a back four as that's what we've been playing a lot. Let's go through the lineup and what we'd like to see. So obviously the first debate is about Areola or Fabianski. Personally, for me, it would be Areola in goal. I'm sure it's the same for you as well. So there was one question about switching goalkeepers if it does go to penalties. Would you be on board with that and with bringing Fabianski on to save the penalties, because his record is a lot better than Areola's?
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problems with that. You got also penalty shootouts and actual penalties, I think, are a completely different kettle of fish. We've also got to forget that in the last penalty shootout that we had, Areola was the goalkeeper against Man City, and we won that. So it's all well and good saying, or maybe we should sub on Fabianski, but it might also, we might need to sub on players to take on penalties. We may also have to have that consideration as well. So I'm not against it. But I would also be looking as to, if we're going into that point of the game, also looking at as to, well, what's on the pitch and who do I have on the bench who I think, or who is going to be able to take a penalty. If you've got the likes of, say, I know it's probably a big call because he's young, but if you've got someone like, say, Mbama, if he's on the bench, you're probably going to say, well, the kid's been scoring and been scoring penalties all season. That's a potential penalty taker. If Cresswell doesn't start, I think he will, but if he doesn't start, again, you're like, that's probably a penalty taker. Yeah. So then you're going to start looking at players as opposed to formations and tactics as to, you're a kicker from here on out. So I think you've also got to start to look at it in that respect. And
sure,
goalkeepers are very important, but it's more down to, in my opinion, a penalty is in the favour of the striker. So absolutely, I would prefer to have quality, confident strikers of the ball on the pitch than a specialist in a 50-50 matchup, 60-40 matchup.
Yeah, I think there's obviously the argument for both. I actually said I'd probably stick with Areola, but I'm still like changing my mind, because I think psychologically it could have a really good impact if we brought Fabianski on, because the Fiorentina players would be like, well, why is he coming on? He must be some penalty god or whatever. But yeah, I think Areola will start in goal. The back four, there's a couple of debates, mainly in the fullback positions. Obviously, again, and Zoom would start as a centre-back pairing. You've then got either Kufal or Thilo Kehrer at right back. Both have been playing pretty well in that position recently. And then you've also got Emerson or Cresswell in left back. Starting with the right back, Thilo Kehrer has been very, very solid recently, especially playing in the right back role. He said it himself in an interview. He sees his best position as a centre back, but he's actually been playing his best football as a right back recently for West Ham. So would you go with Kufal or would you go with Kehrer?
I think, bearing in mind where we are, it's a stadium that is very well known. It's in his home country. I genuinely think the likes of Sufal and Souček, you could probably get an extra 10% out of them, because is everything's home for them in this game. It's the club that they played for many a year. They're in I think even Souček said they're going to be in exactly the same dressing room that they've been in.
The same,
So all intents and purposes to them two, it's a home game. It's in a home country. So I think we'd be remiss not to play those two. There are some concerns if that Ikone plays, because he's very, very quick. But again, we've seen Sufal deal with very quick wingers in the Premier League. So I kind of would go for Sufal, just because you're potentially going to get an extra 10% out of him because of everything that is around this final.
Yeah, no, I would definitely do the same. I would stick Kufal in there. Obviously, a natural right back, as well as Kehrer has been doing. You just have to go with who you think be stronger on a day, and I think that extra incentive from Kufal will give him that as well. So, over on the other side, I think if I'd have asked you this question 2 months ago, it would have been Emerson without a doubt. Cresswell's performances have actually increased the past couple of months. I will say that, and he's done much better. Who would you go with at left back, Cresswell or Emerson?
Okay, Emerson. I think the pace of it's not Dominguez. I don't know why I said Dominguez.
Gonzalez, yeah.
Gonzalez. I think his pace and the fact that Dodo's going to be there, I would be more comfortable with a bit more pace on that side, which will come from Emerson. And also, that also does give us a player that in transition on that side is going to be able to take more advantage with the ball at his feet, in which to exploit the space that them two are going to leave to come forward. So I personally would go Emerson. I think he just offers us a bit more on the ball in possession than Cresswell. And also
I
defensively, I think he can cope
yeah.
with it a bit more because
I,
they're paid.
I would have agreed with that. I would have said that a couple months ago. But recent performances from Emerson do not fill me with the most confidence from a defensive point of view, especially in that Brentford away game. He was really poor defensively, kind of just jogging back. Man City away again. I know we played a back five that day, but again, defensively, the work rate just wasn't there. So for me, I would actually start Cresswell. Just, I think defensively, he's going to offer us a little bit more than Emerson can. Obviously, going forwards, there's the limitation, but I'll get onto obviously the left winger in a second and why I feel like Cresswell would work better. I just think we need to be very careful. Like you mentioned, that is their strongest side. So I want to see us as defensively resolute as possible in that situation. Cresswell might not have the pace that Emerson has, but I think he's a much more intelligent defender. So I would still go with Cresswell in that position. But yeah, in the comments, let us know who you would start in that left back role. But the midfield three, I think, again, it picks itself with Rice, Paqueta, Souček. And then you've got the front three, which is now up for a little bit of debate. Obviously, you've got Bowen on the right, who will start. You've then got Fornals, whose performances have really improved. He's got a couple goals recently. And obviously, he's not going to bring him in as a central midfielder, so he would be playing out on the left if he was to start. Fornals or Benrahma? Who do you pick and why?
I think you pick the players that got you there. So I think you do start with Benrahma, you start with Bowen, you start with Antonio. I think you pick the players that got you there. I love Fornals. I personally think Fornals should be playing in the centre. But he's not going to drop Souček and he's not going to play Fornals there. So that's just a pipe dream. I think we need to have our best foot forward, and potentially that is with Benrahma, who has been one of our most productive players all season. So I think you reward that with him as a starter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what my kind of point was, Benrahma is definitely more of a moments player, and he can, in a final, you need that bit of creativity or magic or whatever it is. So he's more likely to give you that than Fornals. Fornals maybe over the 90-minute period or however long he's on for might give you a little bit more consistency, or maybe a little bit more just in terms of their overall contribution. But I think Benrahma, we've seen what he can do with his individual performances in matches. So yeah, for me, I would go with Benrahma as well and Bowen on the right. And then yeah, the only real debate was around Antonio, but just because of the comments that he's made and whether Moyes will drop him. I've seen a few kind of West Ham outlets saying that Scamacca might actually be in line with a return for the match. I don't necessarily agree that's going to happen, and I wouldn't put him straight in anyway. But regardless of what Antonio said, you have to play him. I think he was crucial in the semi-final. He was crucial in the quarter-final. And as much as he said, a lot of it was true, to be honest, from what he actually said. I don't actually necessarily disagree with many of the points he made, but you just can't publicly do that. But yeah, that's a separate video. But yeah, so Antonio, for you, starts?
Unfortunately, yeah, he has to start. Yeah, I've got some very clear views on Antonio and what should happen with him in the future. But for the time being, he needs to, after his words, he needs to pull out an absolute worldie. If he pulls out a stinker, he's practically done, because he come out with comments, stating that if he was in a Man City side, he'd be banging in 30 goals.
Yeah.
If to play in a Moyes team, you have to live off scraps. Well, you're probably going to have scraps, mate. Go live off them. And also said you need to be a fighter. If he does not fight for every ball, and I mean every ball, if he starts flopping around on the floor, he ain't shown he's a fighter.
No.
So he owes not only the fans, he owes his manager a massive performance.
100%.
And I'll happily praise him to the high heels if he has a great performance. But if he doesn't play well and he has a bit of a stinker, only has himself to blame, because he's brought on any criticism that then comes out of that game with his comments.
No, I completely agree. He's kind of put more pressure on himself. But again, he might show that everyone that he's making his words count. So yeah, I completely agree. I think he has to have a really good performance and he has to work really hard. So yeah, that would be our lineups. Let us know in the comments what you would do. Before we wrap this up, Mike, because the nerves even talking about this are increasing as we get closer. let's get your final prediction. I know you hate predictions. I know you hate score predictions, probably even more so in a final. But what's your gut telling you?
My gut says it's 1-0 Fiorentina.
Really?
It just is. If we can get them in transition because their defensive shape can go a bit out of whack. With I think it's Igor is their centre back who plays alongside Milenkovic. There can be at times a bit of a breakdown. As I say, both their fullbacks like to push forward, so there will be gaps and there will be opportunities to break. Similar to if you can think back to the goal that Fornal scored against Liverpool in that 3-2 game 2 seasons back. Those kind of situations happen sometimes fairly regular in Fiorentina games. Basel was a true beneficiary of an example of that kind of thing because of the way that they look to kind of come forward, or because they push forward so much. There are some gaps that you can then look to exploit. I just at the moment, I'm not confident in how we are defending or confident in how we're holding the ball. And for me, also possession is how you also defend in games. And I don't see us being able to control possession enough, or at times in big pressure games, we've seen us be erratic with the ball. And at the moment, I'm struggling to see us go out there with the right level of composure in possession, particularly. And that's if the ball keeps coming back to us, we will eventually succumb to a goal. And I think once then, if you give Fiorentina the lead, it'll be very difficult in which to then to break them down or to encourage them to come out at us a bit more so we can attack them. And I think that's the problem. Unless we've got set pieces and unless we're doing it in transition, I'm concerned we don't have enough in our overall general play in which to entice, manipulate Fiorentina, in which to fashion chances. That's my concern.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think that the opportunities will be there for us. I think, like you mentioned, it could easily be a 1-0 Fiorentina if they grab that first goal. If we get the first goal, completely different. I think we'll win it 3-1, 2-1 or 3-1. Just honestly, because of those transitions, like you mentioned it. I know Fiorentina are actually really good at recovering from those transitions. They get a lot of bodies back very fast, but we can still hurt teams. And I feel like we're underestimating our own quality. And it probably comes from nerves. It probably comes from just the doubts of what's happened this season. But for me, I just think we're going to have enough on the day, to be honest. I think we're going to be clinical. I think we're going to get those chances. I think we'll take them. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet because I don't think any West Ham fan would probably dream of that at the moment. But we've shown enough throughout this season and throughout Moyes' tenure over the last 2-3 seasons that we can play a certain style that we don't all necessarily agree with in a long term. But in a final, I think it can work. And I think it can work really well against a team that's going to try and expand. It's going to take moments where we make those saves and stop those chances because Fiorentina will create. They're actually quite wasteful with the chances a lot of the time. But I just think we'll have enough, man. I think we'll get that first goal and we'll just get the confidence from there. Obviously, Rice is going to be massively up for it. Paqueta the same. And I think we just sometimes underestimate the quality we have in our squad. You know, you look at the players we actually have, really good team.
Yeah,
I'm staying confident, man.
I find it difficult to say that we underestimate what we have in our squad. I think we've seen enough this season to show that we tend to carry players a lot. And my concern is that in a game where we need composure and we need to be able to, at times, soak up pressure. And I don't just mean pressure again in just sitting everyone behind the ball. I mean pressure in maintaining possession, asking them to come out of that. We don't tend to do that as well as we could. You know, fortunately, we do have the likes of Paqueta, who has also played in Italy before, so is fairly aware of Italian football. Obviously, Scamacca being in and around the squad also is beneficial because he has a good understanding. If Mikel Antonio is not in his ear, asking him how to get the better of Milenkovic and how to kind of play in and around them, he is more of an idiot than I could ever give him credit for. Because if you've got players who've played in that league and you're not leaning on their expertise or their experience, that to me is mind-boggling. And he should be bending Skamaka's ear off as to how to play in and around, say, the likes of Milenkovic.
Yeah.
I really want to be confident. I really do want to be confident. I just struggle to see us playing with the same level of positivity that, say, Basel did, which caused Fiorentina no end of problems. Obviously, the second leg, Fiorentina played a lot better, and Basel, couldn't hang in there. But again, we've got to be, as you say, we've got to be clinical. I think that's the problem that I have. I just don't see us being clinical, and that is my concern. That they're not necessarily going to give us a huge amount of chances, and if we're not clinical, then, as we've seen one too many times this season, a mistake from someone is there, and we get punished. And I'm just hoping this is the one game where we play a near perfect game.
Yeah. It is gonna have to be that kind of match. We're gonna have to take the chances when we get them, and it is gonna have to be that pretty much near perfect performance. So, yeah, I'm trying to stay as positive as I can. Go into it with the positive mindset. So I'm still pretty confident. Actually, I said it a couple of days ago. I was confident. I'm still confident. Just the nerves are starting to set in a little bit of what could actually happen. So, yeah, let's know in the comments how you're feeling, what your predictions are, who you'd like to see, all of that stuff. And yeah, we'll be out in Prague watching. So yeah, come say hello if you see us. I'm sure everyone will be pretty much out and about seeing each other. So yeah, make sure to go and see us. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are new around here. And Mike, until next time,
come on, you Lions.